Really happy to be with you today. My name is Dan Hushin. I am the CTO at DXC Technology, and we're here for another session of the DXC Tech Talk. I'm really excited today. I have three very distinguished guests with me. Tim Henderson, who's our VP of Operations for Bionics and Platform DXC, really helping to build, to that extent, Platform DXC, our own business platform that we are using to improve the operations of the IT services that we deliver to our clients. Karsten Meinecke, which I did wrong. I'm sorry, Karsten. I was trying hard. The head of digital technology consulting for DXC, and Bill Murray, who's the senior researcher and advisor for the Leading Edge Forum, that is a part of DXC and is looking at our 2-year to 5-year landscape and helping some of the most sophisticated clients in the world build their business strategies right for this changing climate. So welcome, everyone. So with that, I just wanted to go real quickly before we kind of jump into the discussion, what to expect. So today we're going to do about a 30-minute live discussion, which is available to everyone here, broadcast on YouTube. But at the same time, we're going to open up a collaborative social crowd chat called crowdchat.net/DXC Tech Talk. You can go there now and you can put in questions that you want to share with our audience. After that, we're going to actually move into a 30-minute collaborative discussion about what we've talked about today, which is really this notion of business transformation, IT modernization, and the motions that we're seeing the most successful enterprise clients take as they're trying to change their operations, become more agile, and truly innovate in their industries. And all of these conversations are fully open just for everyone. They are on social media and on YouTube. And so we'll ask you to kind of pay attention, not mention customers or things that you would not prefer to have mentioned on these kinds of very open internet forums. So with that, I'm going to kind of kick it off. Bill, how about we go to you real quickly and talk a little bit about how the LEF is seeing the world begin to carve up its strategy, right? And I know it's an and conversation, not an or, but why don't you tell us a little bit about what the LEF is seeing in the market?
So very briefly, we spoke to about 50 or so companies, and we said, can we just break down this notion of digital transformation, which everyone is saying is big, we're struggling with it, and so forth. 3 things came out. 3 things that can happen at the same time. First, that people are more aggressively now modernizing their technology, and they're moving to more capable technology stacks, and that looks to get the technology off the critical path to business change. And that business change, business transformation, really does change the value that they're creating in the market, whether that's the value of their products, cutting down cycle time, and so forth. Ultimately, in business transformation, you're changing 2 things. You're changing the operating model of the business, the mechanics, and you're changing the business model, how value is created. From time to time, that breaks through into disruption. There's an important word there, displacement. You can have a whole chunk of business transformation, but if it doesn't displace the people who are already there, you haven't disrupted the industry. What we're seeing, however, and everyone's very aware of, is technology is increasing the rate at which firms are disrupting markets. Okay, Dan?
Absolutely. No, it's absolutely right on. And what we're seeing underpinning that, right, are some new strategies to be successful customers. I mean, these are the themes, right, and from the themes come a set of strategies, right. So what do you kind of, as you kind of dig in and to try to decorate, right? Let's just talk about IT modernization for fun, right? A set of principles and strategies that are being enlisted to help companies aim at a horizon target as they kind of do their overdue homework. So why don't you explain, right, some of these, strategies that are really, flowing into these businesses as they're thinking about their IT modernization or their business transformation?
Me?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
I can do it, but I think you're good at it.
Bless you. All right. So when we talk to people about IT modernization, two or three things come up repeatedly. Software-defined everything, for a start. That'll go to the heart. That will go to the heart of restructuring IT operations and taking IT operations off the critical path to change. We are finding data that can't move, data that needs to move, to be something that's also under IT modernization. That's something that doesn't appear on very many lists, but it's beginning to get in the way. It's a good sign that technology modernization is going at a pace that it's stopping holding up the business. But guess what is starting to hold up the business now? The way that data isn't so fluid. We're finding that too. Customer journeys, as we know, are driving most of the digital transformation programs that we see out there. And we're seeing that get deeper and deeper and deeper. But the report that I'm working on now, which is going to be a lead into a couple of my colleagues here, is we see this whole notion of platform changing. And it's quite a profound change. And traditional companies are just beginning to catch up to these hyperscalers. And here's the big change. We used to think about platforms as collections of software and data. In the ERP world, that was your classic platform. They're not anymore. They are environments. They are people, processes, and technology that are really smartly put together to deliver DevOps, to deliver agile, to deliver site reliability engineering, all that really good stuff that takes IT off the critical path. So these platforms do two things. They help and accelerate IT modernization, and they help and accelerate business transformation. Platforms have changed to change environments, and right at the tip of it, they become an operating model in their own right, which is exactly what Platform DX is.
Yeah, I would agree, Bill. This is Tim Henderson. We see that the common platform is actually, I use the term a playground, and that's kind of a silly term, but it's getting everybody on the same field, right? And a lot of this is Bill and Dan talked about is culture change and knocking down those silos and barriers to get everybody to not be siloed based off your tools, who you work for, what your role is, and getting you to collaborate. And as Bill articulated, you've got to start with that IT stack to a degree. We lost the charts. I don't know if that was intentional.
Yep.
But you've really got to start small with the right group of people that feel empowered in a safe zone. Get them to start collaborating around that platform, and it will grow. It's key, but it is a foundational gateway to get this moving forward. So well said, Bill.
Yeah, right on. As we move into digital transformation, and I'll just kind of, jump back just for fun, right? Maybe Karsten, you want to talk about a little of the transformational aspect, right? The change the business aspect, right? Of the motion that you're seeing from a consulting perspective, right? So it's, maybe you want to walk through a little bit some of these transformational strategies, right? That you're seeing really take hold inside of the business.
Yeah, absolutely. And I really need to say, we can see there from a business point of view, we obviously see two things, as Bill already said. So it's all driven by, or mainly driven by customer journeys. And along there, the transformation tries to do two things. So on the one side, really to identify new products, new services they can offer to their clients, and then they are enabled through the business platforms Bill just talked about, which will become more and more important. We see this heavily, for example, in the supplier business of the OEMs, where you see large transformation in that industries towards electric drive and autonomous drive, and the suppliers are still heavily dependent on classical components, and they are thinking about new products, but also always in combination then with new services, and then they are based on new platforms. No question around this. What is interesting from my point of view is what we also already heard, that IT in there plays a totally different role. It's really part of these new products on the one side, on the other side, they need to start to build also new environments, platforms also, for my definition, but more from a technical point of view, which enables these new innovations, which really are set up in the way that they are enabling speed, time to market. And if they are not doing this, then they will really fail, and the business will do the typical things. They at the end they will do this by themselves. So that is really a danger of all of the classical IT functions out there. But I see there that the turnaround is coming up, and the IT functions are really stepping into this and are mainly already part of these business transformations.
So I see one of the key motions, just to really get to a fine point on platforms, right? We've heard about some of the Industry 4.0 disruptions, right, around shifting from linear supply chains, right, to ecosystems. We've seen a lot of digital entrants who are really acting as integrators of information provided by others, right, that are producing novel information product, whether it's a transaction or a service, right, for individuals through combination, right, coming forward. So, for me, there's a whole bunch of pieces right here around that ecosystem and allies piece, right, around the business transformation, where you could look at internal ecosystems, right? How do I get my business working together, right, to create the new products, right? Where fundamentally I'm bringing specialties together, right, in squads that are culturally and organizationally transforming the business. But just as easily, you can see it as an outside-in transformation, where you're beginning to actually participate now with a marketplace, with governments, with countries, with other new entrants and new models, right, together with your assets in order to create new combinations that are valuable. So there was a question that came in on the internet that I just wanted to go to real quickly. It's from a viewer. It says, how do people fit into the new environment, or is it all about technology? So maybe, Bill, I start with you, or actually let's start with Tim on that one, because Tim has been the center of the change for DXC and through Platform DXC into the new economy. So how do people fit into the platform business and the change the business motion?
Thanks, Dan, and that's a great question. I'd actually say it's the center of it. I can share how we did this within DXC with the company coming together with Platform DXC and Bionics. We started with about maybe 30 people on a pilot project over about 10 weeks, give or take, to see what was the art of the possible of how to go put a, quote, platform together. And we realized we had more technology than we knew what to do with. The biggest part of this was the culture change of getting people unlocked to go do something. Someone that wasn't a network engineer that could write a network adapter, right? The old thinking was, well, I'm not part of the network team. I can't do this. I know that sounds very basic, but you will find at the level where there's engineers that are doing the work, those constraints mentally are what locks them up. So the key with this is really creating a safe environment, as I said earlier, and rallying those core people and getting what I would call a cross-section of demographics from your company. That's key also, that everybody kind of has a seat at the table. And you start small with a few sponsors and you just go. And you will find that these engineers, architects, technical leads will create more intellectual property and ideas than you could ever imagine if you sat in conference rooms and printed PowerPoint till the cows come home. We like to call it pivot from the middle. Give them a vision and let them go create it. But it's pretty amazing when you see it in action. We do these things called build-a-thons. Now we're on build-a-thon 12 and we go do them all over the globe. Our partners are in there with us. Our clients are in there with us sometimes. And it's amazing to go see the transformation and the work. You get like 4 months worth of work in 2 weeks. It's pretty cool to see.
Maybe I can add there a little client example. I just saw in the last, it was now for the last 1 year, the classical IT was quite clever. So they set up a new digital platform where they really get the right basis to get all the innovation things they saw already up and running quickly, which was a lot about IoT use cases, for example. And they get this up and running from a technical side quite easily, but that didn't help them really to drive then the innovation at the end, because they had this fantastic classical or new platform, and they had some really good IT people on their side. But if you don't have then the change in how you want to work together and what kind of new roles are required, then not only on the business side, I mean a mixture of both, right? On the business side as well as on the IT side, then that doesn't help you at all. So you have a fantastic technical environment, but it does not help you at all in the transformation. So that shows clearly, I think, the power of what does it mean then on the people side, what needs to happen there.
Yeah, so just to summarize for everyone, I think we're seeing, the value of multifunctional teams, right, substantially outpacing, right, the value of individual superheroes. The recognition that it's a DevOps partnership, right? It's the technologists with the business leaning in together. And then there was kind of one word that I really like that I didn't hear anyone mention, which is this notion of product ownership, right? And that everything, no matter how big or how small, right, has an owner, right, from a product perspective, who is governing, right, the financials, the strategy, right, the backlog of that basis, and guiding the team, right, in its intrepid, right, and highly cyclical journey, right, towards excellence, right, which is fraught with peril on the edges, right, because you can't learn if you aren't willing to fail. And so, we're seeing, right, those motions being incredibly important for organizations. And I think that it talks to a culture of being willing and able to come together quickly, and also to separate quickly, to be willing to cycle quickly, and quite honestly, to play any role on the team. And I think that utility infielder mentality, right, is becoming incredibly important. And I think we're seeing it overall in organizational structure in many firms, right? It's not about your title; it's about what you know and how well you collaborate, becoming important. So. As we continue to kind of move through, and I don't want to let the deck govern us, because I'd much rather have the conversation, right? We kind of move through, right? A next slide, right? DXC is a lot of times, right, talked about, right, how, right, a lot of companies who are undertaking their modernization really need to think about, right, how do we walk, right, from where we are today to where we want to be tomorrow, right? So basic 4-step journey around hybrid cloud that I think we see over and over again. Reoperationalize the core, right? Establish your hybrid cloud strategy so you know what to focus in on, right? So you can actually do important things for the company and yet set the culture of how you do it, right? So because the company needs a roadmap, they need to know how to measure you to some extent, right? Then you have to build your ops model, right? Because when you begin to work this way in the DevOps motion, right, the traditional ITSM just doesn't work the way it needs to, and you spend a lot more time thinking about the tools than potentially around what I call traditional operational processes. And then, lastly, this squads, right? Migration and modernization and decommissioning begin to just happen at pace and scale within the organization as the squads are built with business and technology together. And this is just one motion, right? And there's a broad set of changes that need to be required as you undertake your overdue homework. But this certainly seems to be top of mind because it's kind of the intersection with the ability to self-serve and deliver the new business change. We are seeing, and Carsten, maybe you want to take us through it, right? That this technology stack, right, is picking up some new behaviors.
Yeah, absolutely. So based on the one example I just brought, what we saw then, if you are able to build such an technology stack, and you start, let's say you start a little bit what you would not expect from a consultant, but let's say you start from the technical side. Mm-hmm. And if you do this right, and you come up with an innovation platform, what we have seen then after such an environment is then up and running, and you can show the benefits to the business, and how this can really help to support the digital transformation. And you do this then, and you start small, as we all learned, and you come up with first MVPs and stuff like that. Then it really starts to take off if you do this right.
It's
for the innovation part. again?
It's kind of an exponential growth that we begin to see, right? The company
Correct.
has to learn, right? I mean, Bill, Tim, right? I mean, we started with the first build-a-thon, not certain it was going to work, right? It was wildly successful. We had huge outcome, right? We're now getting returns of investment of invested capital, right? Of 4 to 1 plus or minus. Right,
Yep.
which kind of lines up with what the IDC is saying, right? 75% of IT operations, right, will be supplanted, right? That's kind of a 4 to 1 motion against current spend. So, it's certainly, these platforms are becoming important. As you look at the technical stack, is there any of the bullets on the left hand side that you think is incredibly important, right? In terms of leading the way, in terms of that silent running operation and getting to change.
Yeah, Dan, I think the data and the analytics are key. And we have a concept in DXC, we call it log wide. And what I mean by wide is we ingest everything we can, not just technical telemetry, but security telemetry. And now we're actually starting with Platform DXC to get business telemetry. And believe it or not, you can take those 3 different telemetry streams and get insights and opportunities or even perceived risks much faster than what you could if you just looked at this in a traditional way of managing IT. Traditional IT, when it breaks probably later than the person in the manufacturing floor, right? Their business is impacted. We're seeing machine learning get ahead of like plant equipment and other things that are at the edge where really these systems are intended to empower the workers to build the product or deliver the service. And predict where things are going to fail ahead of time. It may be an hour ahead of time, it may be a couple days ahead of time, but it's ahead of time. And that's really the value here. So I would say, Dan, the data in the concept that all data has value, the company has made investments to collect that data, create that data, and don't lock it up in the filing cabinet, but exploit it and continually learn from it and use it.
Yeah, so you've pulled on 2 of my pressure points, right? Both data value, right, and value decay, but also data gravity, right? I think that the log wide is a data gravity story. We've all seen periods in which 3 different stakeholders from 3 different sides of the business all came together with their data, right, to solve some problem, right? And you spent more time than you'd like to admit trying to figure out, right, who's at fault. And instead, if all that data had already been brought together, had already been cross-linked, right, then a simple query might give you the answer of what's causing the slow performance or the loss of performance or the leakage of revenue or whatever those points are. And we're finding that business problem. And this is really where I think the digital twin for the enterprise, right, becomes important, right? It's both a digital twin at the top, but it's a whole set of subcomponents that are also digital twins of individual components of operation. And being able to pull a digital thread right through all those digital twins gives you new insights about a very broad-based business, right, with an efficiency that's remarkable. So I absolutely think you're right. As we move forward, even further, right, we are seeing digital transformation, right, have a couple of main triggers, right? I mean, I think one of the ones that is on the right that's most important is this notion of, agile and DevOps practices, right, get into substantially wider business. And we're actually, talking about more than DevOps, but actually moving to kind of site reliability engineering, right? That culture of if it's broken, fix it, and it's not a handoff, right? It's it's an integral function. Are we seeing anything else, right, triggering, right, the business transformation? I mean, certainly it's strategy, right, and innovation and counterparty moves in the marketplace, competitors, right, freeing up resources for innovation, mergers and acquisitions. Are there any other triggers that we're seeing? Is it just an OpEx cost, right, where the operations and the lights on spend is just getting in the way of doing anything? It's locking the business up.
If I may say so, I think this is all right and correct, and these are the main drivers. So another client example, I do see here investing hundreds of millions into a new, complete new IT stack from the top to the bottom, because they know that the business model will change so heavily that they will not be able to do this in the old environment. So then they are building a new environment, and then they're using that one to deliver all the new business services and products they do have in mind. But honestly, it's a little bit sad, But also on the other side, we should never forget it's also about cost and efficiency, right? So IT modernization is also to a good extent the opportunity to simplify your technical landscape and to make it more efficient, and that for sure helps you to get the cost down in the legacy environment, which at the same time is then also the base and frees up the budget you require to invest into a new environment. So that's, for me, that's the second element which drives this.
Thank you,
Can I chip in one thing there quickly? I think we're beginning to see activist regulators. Normally regulation lags. Look at what the EU are doing. All right. Oh boy. And they're doing it around data as well. So if your eyes on, quite rightly, on the technology stack, put it also on data as well. We're now starting to see more collaboration between energetic regulators and startups. And even some of the big hyperscalers saying, oh no, we better start talking to the regulators. And we are seeing folks think, okay, if they lighten up the regulation, that lets a ton of people in. If they tighten up the regulation, that means pain for us. That's beginning to get on the board agenda now.
So, Bill, do you think that data and information is starting to become a currency in a way?
I certainly think it is. I think what's interesting is that chats I have with Dan and my colleagues in DXC is we're stretching the language. You talk to Dan. Dan mentioned data gravity, data inertia was something else to say there. We don't have enough simple concepts and language around data. We have lots of complicated ones, and we don't know how we're going to come together. So some of my DXC colleagues and I have been putting together what we call the natural and social sciences of data at the moment, where we talk about data mechanics with gravity, inertia, volume, velocity, data economics with value, stability, cost, and Dan's decay. Data genetics with varieties, parents, adaptions, data synthetics. And then finally, the great way, the very simple way that, I mean, I've seen kids of 16 years old talk about data this way, as solids, liquids, and gases, which is data connected. So these simple models that they learn at 13, 14 years old, they're beginning to imagine how data flows. We had better start imagining it that way as well. That's it.
That's great. So we're almost out of time, and Tim, you haven't had your last shot. So why don't you take a last shot, right, at unlocking transformation?
Yeah, thanks, Dan. So we've talked a lot about technology and culture and people, and I guess I would say that you really have to surround yourself with some people that believe in this mission. That's key. You're going to have detractors. And usually that's out of fear, right? If you really look at the basics of an organization, it's fear. And I would recommend that you pull those people that are fearful closer, right? Get them in, get them engaged, and get them on board. The other thing I would add, again, I'm focusing really on the people part of this is, as Dan mentioned, we had these build-a-thons, and by build-a-thon 4, at the end, somebody said, to Dan and I, you guys made IT fun again. Think about that statement. I almost had a tear in my eye when they said that. And they said, this has been such a commodity business for the past 10 or 15 years that it really has transformed the team, that they really feel that they're adding value to the business and that they're part of the business. The team is crucial. I think whoever had that question, Dan, was spot on earlier. The technology's there. There's a lot of tools. Those are important things, but a lot of times we as technologists get wrapped up in that too much. And we've got to look at that transformation of the platform for the business and almost a veneer layer on top of it of what is the business we're driving. That ecosystem is code, and then exploit the technology to enable that. That would be my parting words of driving value, but the team's key.
Yeah, I do agree with you, Tim. I think we're decommoditizing IT, right? And I think that's a really important, piece, right? If you feel like you're vested, right, in helping to change something, create something, right, there is a certain amount of of happiness and joy fun that it creates, right? It gets you out of bed in the morning. I think the thing that keeps people in bed is I'm going back to the grind, right, to do the same thing today that I did yesterday. And so I think the rate of change is a great thing. I think actually rate of change is a critical aspect of rate of transformation, is figuring out, right, how do you begin to find your velocity and your acceleration as a business? What are the key milestones and metrics? And I'm going to leave this because I actually think this is a great conversation, right, for the crowd chat that we're about to enter into, right? What are the metrics that allow you to know that you're making progress, right? How do you know? How do you know, right, that your modernization is actually taking hold within the business? And so let's go over to crowd chat now. I want to really thank our incredibly enlightened guests, right? Tim Henderson and Bill Murray and Karsten. Thank you guys very much for joining me today. We'll be back in a couple more weeks to talk about the digital trends for 2020. But outside of that, I think this is a really critical talk for both DXC employees, but also our partners and our clients, because I think we're all on this journey together to do our overdue homework, but to have fun doing it. So thank you guys very much, and please join us over at crowdchat.net/DXC Tech Talk right now. Thank you.